Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're stepping into a world that's, well, kind of feels like it's straight out of science fiction. Humanoid robots. We've got this awesome report. It's the 2024 Humanoid Robotics Industry Development Research Report. It's from the China Academy of Information and Communications Technology.
Yeah, this report's really something.
It is, and we're going to unpack it all today. And you know what's really cool is it's not just about robots in factories anymore.
Right, it goes way beyond that.
Okay, so first things first. We're seeing a huge shift in how these robots are built. We're talking about ditching those bulky hydraulic systems.
Yeah, those are so old school.
Totally. And embracing sleek and super efficient electric actuators.
It's a totally game changer. Think about it like this. The Navi and Avatar, they move with such incredible strength and grace. That's kind of what electric actuators are bringing to robots. Like Tesla's Optimus Gen 2, they switched to electric actuators. What happened? Boom, 30% faster and 10 kilograms lighter.
Wow, it's like they went on a robot diet. But okay, so they're getting more agile and efficient. But what about like the brains of the operation? How are these robots actually learning and thinking?
Well, that's where AI comes in. And the report highlights some pretty amazing approaches. Like one way is using something called LLMs, they're large language models. And then you combine those with VFMs, visual foundation models. It's kind of like giving a robot a brain that understands language and the world around it.
So you could literally tell a robot, hey, go clean my room. And it would actually, like, understand what you meant.
Exactly. It could navigate all the clutter and everything, get the job done.
That's wild. I can already see my messy room getting a lot cleaner.
But there's another approach that's even more fascinating. It's called end-to-end learning.
Okay, end-to-end learning. I'm intrigued.
So picture this. A robot that learns how to cook just by watching YouTube videos.
Okay, now that's just showing off.
Right. But it's totally possible with something called Vision Language Action Models, or VLAs. Basically, these models allow robots to learn directly from what they see and hear, kind of like how we learn.
So it's like robots are going to become YouTube chefs. I'm kind of scared, but also super impressed. But okay, so we've got these agile learning robots. Where are they actually going to be used? Is it still just factories?
Oh, not even close. This report shows humanoid robots breaking free from those industrial cages. They're heading into healthcare, homes, even disaster zones.
Hold up, robots in our homes. Like doing our dishes and laundry?
It's happening. Companies like Figure AI are already developing robots specifically for those tasks. They have one called the Figure 2. It can do chores around the house.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. But let's be real, this tech has to be super expensive, right? Like who can actually afford a robot butler?
Well, yeah, humanoid robots are a big investment right now, but the report predicts this market is about to explode. Like we're talking a potential trillion-dollar global market by 2035.
$1 trillion? That's like a lot of robot butlers. What's driving all this growth?
A few things are coming together, actually. First, you've got labor shortages in a bunch of industries, and the demand for automation. It's skyrocketing. Then you've got companies like Figure AI. They're attracting massive investments, like $2.6 billion to develop their robots. Oh, and we can't forget about China. They're putting serious resources into research and development, aiming to be a major player in all of this.
So humanoid robots are about to be a big deal, not just in tech, but in the whole global economy. But here's the thing. With robots doing all these jobs, what happens to, well, human jobs?
It's a super valid concern. The report does point out the potential for job displacement, yeah, but it also stresses the importance of things like retraining programs and helping people adapt to this new robot-powered workforce.
Yeah, it's kind of like in Avatar, when the Na'vi had to adapt to the arrival of, well, us humans. We'll need to figure out how to adapt to the rise of robots.
Exactly. It's a challenge, no doubt, but it's also an opportunity to rethink how we work. What if robots could take over all the dangerous, repetitive jobs? That would free up humans to focus on, more creative, fulfilling roles.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so we've talked about agile robots, learning robots, robots in our homes. This is all super cool, but I want to know more about the tech that's making it all happen. Like, what's going on under the hood? What does the report say about the materials and the actual technology that's making these robots so advanced?
Oh, get ready, because it's pretty amazing. We're talking about robots that are lighter, stronger, and more capable than ever before. You ready to dive into that?
Absolutely, let's do it.
So you want to talk about the tech that's making all this robot magic happen. It's pretty wild, actually. We're talking about robots that are getting seriously high-tech makeovers.
Yeah, I mean, those old plunky robots, they're so yesterday.
Exactly. And thanks to all these new materials, robots are getting lighter, tougher, and way more agile. The report mentions things like carbon fiber and PEEK.
PEEK, that rings a bell. Isn't that what they use in, like, spaceships and stuff?
Yep, that's the stuff. It can handle crazy temperatures, tons of stress, perfect for robots that need to work in, really tough environments. Like take Tesla's Optimus Gen 2, for example. They used PEEK in its structure, and guess what? The robot got 13% lighter and way more responsive.
So it's kind of like swapping out those old clunky metal parts for like a super sleek, lightweight frame. Almost like, you know how the Na'vi and Avatar have those super strong but slender limbs.
That's a great comparison. It's about finding that sweet spot between strength and flexibility. And these new materials, they're helping robots do just that. Carbon fiber, for instance, it's crazy strong and stiff, right? So it's perfect for robotic limbs that need to be both powerful and super precise.
It's amazing how all these advances, like stuff from aerospace engineering, are now trickling down to robotics. It's pretty cool. But hold on, it's not just about building a better body for these robots. They also need to, like, sense and understand the world, right?
Oh, absolutely. And the report goes into some really exciting breakthroughs in sensors. Like we're talking about sensor suites that can actually measure force in like multiple directions.
Wait, really? So they can actually feel what they're touching? That's wild.
Yep. And not just feel it, but actually like understand it. These sensors, they let robots figure out how much pressure they're implying and adjust their grip. Imagine a robot that can pick up an egg without crushing it, or handle like super delicate objects with the precision of a surgeon. That's the kind of dexterity we're talking about.
That is mind-blowing. It's like giving robots like superhuman senses. But okay, so we've got all these sensors, powerful actuators. All that must require a ton of energy, right? How are they keeping these robots powered up?
That's another area where the report highlights some pretty cool stuff. So those traditional lithium-ion batteries, they're being replaced with solid-state batteries. They're safer, and they pack way more energy. Like the Figure 02 robot, that one from Figure AI, it can run for 5 hours on a single charge, all thanks to its solid-state battery pack.
5 hours, huh? That's pretty impressive. But, I mean, it's still not quite enough for a full workday, right?
True, but for robots that need to go longer, the report mentions some really interesting research happening with graphene-enhanced lithium-ion batteries. They could charge faster and store even more energy.
Okay, so we're talking lighter, stronger robots, robots with superhuman senses, and now batteries that could potentially last all day. This is starting to feel less like sci-fi and more like, actual reality.
It is, but with all this amazing technology, I think it's important to step back and think about the ethical side of things.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, how do we make sure these super capable robots are used responsibly?
Exactly, and the report actually digs into that. One of the biggest things they highlight is safety. These robots, they got to have really advanced collision avoidance systems and fail-safe mechanisms to make sure they can't harm humans. Think about it. If we're going to have robots working side by side with us, they need to be programmed to put human safety first. Kind of like how the Na'vi and Avatar, they have that deep respect for all living things.
Yeah, that makes sense. But it goes beyond just preventing physical harm, right? We also got to consider the social and economic impacts. Like, what happens to jobs if robots can do a lot of the stuff that humans are doing now?
That's a big one, and the report stresses how important it is to start planning for that. We need things like retraining programs and new ways to educate people. We got to make sure people can adapt to a world where, humans and robots work together.
It's like we're on the verge of a huge societal shift, and it's kind of wild to think about. But all this talk about the present and the near future has got me wondering, what's next? What does the report predict for the long-term future of these humanoid robots? What's on the horizon for these amazing machines? So we've talked about robots getting lighter, stronger, and like way more perceptive. But what's next for these machines? What does the report say about where all this tech is headed in the long run?
Well, the report actually lays out this really fascinating roadmap for the next, 15 years. They break it down into 3 phases.
3 phases, okay. I'm all ears. What are these phases of robot evolution?
All right, so phase 1, that's from, 2025 to 2030, and it's all about niche industrial deployment.
Niche industrial deployment. So basically robots taking on really specialized tasks in, controlled environments?
Exactly. Think warehouses and factories, robots doing things like palletizing, inspecting products, really refining their skills in those specific areas. The main focus in this phase is basically on improving the tech that we already have, making those robots even better at what they already do.
So kind of like robots going to trade school, getting really good at their craft. Got it. So what happens after trade school? What's phase 2?
Phase 2 is where things were really interesting. This is from 2030 to 2035, and this is when we'll start seeing general-purpose service robots.
Okay, general purpose. So these robots, They're not just stuck in factories anymore.
Nope, not at all. These robots will be able to handle much more complex environments, like our homes, hospitals, places like that. They'll be able to deal with all the unpredictability of the real world.
So robots that can actually navigate like the real world with all its messiness and surprises, that's a game changer.
Totally. And this shift is going to be driven by big advances in things like neuromorphic computing and quantum machine learning.
Okay, I'm going to be honest, those are some pretty big words. What do they actually mean for these robots?
Basically, it means we're going to see robots that can learn and adapt in real time, almost like they have, intuition.
Wow, robot intuition. That's a little freaky, but also really cool. So what kind of stuff will these intuitive robots be doing?
Well, the report predicts that healthcare in particular will see a huge increase in robots during this phase. Think robots assisting with surgery, providing care for elderly patients, things like that. They could really make a difference in people's lives.
That's incredible. It's amazing to think about how this tech could completely transform healthcare. Okay, so we've got specialized robots, then robots that can handle our messy world. What about phase 3? What happens when robots graduate from college?
Phase 3, that's the big one. This starts after 2035, and this is when things get, well, kind of mind-blowing. This is when robots are predicted to achieve L5 autonomy.
L5 autonomy. Hold on, break that down for me. What does that even mean?
L5 autonomy means full self-operation. Basically, robots making their own decisions, operating completely on their own without any human input.
Whoa, robots running the show. So, like, we could have robots maintaining entire cities, exploring space, doing all the dangerous stuff that humans can't or shouldn't do.
Exactly. Think about it. Robots exploring the depths of the ocean or, cleaning up hazardous waste. The possibilities are pretty much endless.
It's definitely exciting. But I gotta admit, it's also a little bit intimidating to think about a future where robots are that advanced. What will our role be in a world where robots can basically do anything?
It's a big question, and it's one that we need to start thinking about seriously, like right now. As robots get more capable, it's super important that we, figure out the ethical side of things. We need to develop guidelines and frameworks to make sure this technology is used responsibly for good. It's like in Avatar, how the Na'vi had to figure out a way to live in harmony with nature. We'll need to figure out how to live in harmony with robots.
That's a really great point. We need to think about the big picture, the long-term consequences, not just the cool tech. But honestly, it's also pretty amazing that we live in a time where all this is even possible.
I know, right? It's such a fascinating time to be alive. And, while the report predicts L5 autonomy by 2035, I actually think that advances in artificial consciousness could speed things up.
Artificial consciousness. You're talking about robots that are actually aware.
Yeah, exactly. Robots that don't just mimic human behavior, but actually experience the world in a way that's, kind of similar to how we do.
Wow, that's a pretty bold prediction. Robots with consciousness. It definitely opens up a whole new can of worms, both in terms of what's possible and like what we need to be careful about.
For sure. It's a future that needs careful planning, but it's also a future that's just like brimming with potential. It's pretty exciting.
Well, I think it's safe to say we've covered a ton of ground today. We talked about robot design, we talked about the future of work, and we even touched on like robot consciousness. It's clear that humanoid robots are going to play a huge role in shaping our world.
Absolutely. And it's up to all of us to make sure that the future we build with these robots is, a good one.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of humanoid robots, we want to leave you with a question. How do you see these robots impacting your life in the years to come? It's definitely something to think about as we all navigate this crazy and exciting world of technology.
Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and stay curious. The future of humanoid robots is, well, it's happening right now, and it's going to be one wild ride.
And that's a wrap on this episode of The Deep Dive. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a totally different but equally fascinating topic. Until then, keep exploring, everyone.